Okay, so let's just think about the buildings we live in for a second. We see them as solid, right? Permanent, separate from the world outside. But what if that whole idea, the very foundation of what a house is actually a kind of trap? And what if a much better blueprint for how we should build has been growing right under our feet for literally millions of years?
To really wrap our heads around where we might be going, we first have to understand the box we've kind of put ourselves in. And this is all about challenging the most basic piece of our world, the wall.
You know, this quote from speculative architect Sena Matsuda, it just hits the nail on the head. For thousands of years, the wall solved a problem. Of course it did. It kept the rain out, it defined our property. But in solving that problem, we gave something up, something really important. We traded mobility and flexibility for this rigid and frankly pretty fragile sense of permanence.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting, this idea of a lightweight return. I want you to think about a tent or maybe a yurt. These things weren't just shelters. They were these incredibly responsive systems. They moved with the seasons. They moved with the animals. They moved with life. It was an architecture that actually served people instead of locking them down. It's a kind of logic we've almost completely forgotten.
So, here it is, the core contrast. On one side, you have the wall, heavy, separating, totally static. And on the other, the tent, which represents a whole different way of thinking, lightweight, adaptive, and mobile. Now, the goal isn't to go back to living in tents, obviously. The point is to recover that logic, that way of thinking, and figure out how to apply it to our world today.
So, if the wall is the problem, where on earth do we find a better model? Well, it turns out the answer is hiding in the vast, super intelligent networks of the fungal kingdom.
And that brings us to the big idea here, mycomimetic architecture. And this is so key. We are not talking about building houses that look like mushrooms. That's not it at all. This is about imitating the function, the network logic, that incredible distributed intelligence that lets fungi connect and mediate entire ecosystems.
So what does that actually mean? How do we copy that? Well, first, it's about learning how fungi act as bridge builders. They create these gentle gradients between different environments instead of just throwing up a hard barrier. And second, it's about their model of bottom-up coordinated growth. This is their true genius. They use simple, repeating modules to scale from a tiny microscopic thread into literally the largest living organism on Earth. Okay, this is where the theory gets real. How do we take this fungal logic and apply it to the concrete jungles we already have? Well, the answer isn't to tear everything down. It's to dress our buildings in something totally new, a living, breathing fourth skin. So, meet the exostructure. Think of it like a permanent modular scaffold that wraps around our existing buildings. It doesn't replace our home, it makes it better. It's an add-on that transforms a building from just being an isolated box into a real participant in its environment. And get this, the materials are just as amazing. The framework is totally modular, right? It's designed to be unbolted and reused, not demolished. The insulation isn't styrofoam, it's compressed mycelium that's grown on farm waste. The surface is literally alive, covered in moss panels, and the whole thing waters itself with its own rainwater catching system. It's a perfect little circular economy. And the benefits? They're immediate and they're huge. By wrapping a building in this living, breathing thermal blanket, you can slash heating and cooling costs by 30 to 40%. That's a direct, practical win for the people living there and a massive win for the planet. But it doesn't stop with energy savings. Not even close. This living skin is an incredible sound barrier, cutting down on city noise. It dramatically cools the building's surface, which helps fight that urban heat island effect we're always talking about, and it actively filters the air. The building stops being a drain on the city and actually starts giving back. And this is what it all adds up to, a building that has become part of an ecological network. It breathes, it manages its own water, it provides a home for birds and insects. It's not just a container for people anymore. It's a metabolically active piece of the city. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. A single building is a fantastic start. But what happens when whole neighborhoods start doing this? Well, you get something truly revolutionary, the cellular city. So cellular urbanism is all about organizing neighborhoods into these little clusters or cells of a few hundred people. This creates a whole new layer of community. It's small enough that you can actually participate, but big enough to manage shared things like energy, water, and even food systems together.
This is a complete 180 from the old way of planning cities. We move away from those rigid, top-down master plans and instead move toward this more organic, bottom-up kind of growth. What you get is a city that's more modular, more resilient, and one that's optimized for the health of its communities, not just for some abstract idea of efficiency. It's that fungal network logic, but applied to how we govern ourselves.
So what would a city like this actually look like? Well, as you can see, it all starts with shared resources. These clusters share energy, water, and food. That leads right into local governance, giving residents a real voice. The whole system is then optimized by networked AI, which helps manage how resources flow between all the different cells. And finally, you get these totally new ways to move around, like elevated skyways that create this amazing three-dimensional city experience.
Okay, let's zoom out one last time. Let's go to the biggest scale possible. Because this way of thinking, it's not just about architecture. It's about our entire relationship with the planet. It's about a fundamental choice we have to make. I mean, if you look at how humanity has spread across the Earth, the pattern is identical to how a fungus colonizes a log. Our cities are the dense hubs, and our roads, our shipping lanes, our fiber optic cables, those are the threads connecting everything. We've actually built a planetary-scale mycelium network. And that leads us to a really crucial question. What kind of organism are we? Are we a parasite, just sucking up resources from our host planet until it's all gone? Or can we learn to become a mutualistic partner, one that gives back just as much as it takes? The choice is pretty stark when you lay it out like this. The parasitic path is all about a linear metabolism. You take, you make, you waste. But the mutualistic path is cyclical. It's built on reciprocity and regeneration. And every single building we put up is a physical statement about which one of those paths we're choosing to go down.